There is a habit so simple, so inexpensive, and so effortless that most people dismiss it the moment they hear it. 3 almonds, every morning, before anything else. And yet what happens inside the cardiovascular system over the 30 days that follow is something that cardiologists at some of the world's most respected research institutions are now describing as one of the most consistent, measurable, and reproducible nutritional interventions ever documented for heart health in adults over 60. Not a supplement, not a pharmaceutical, not a complicated protocol requiring kitchen equipment, specialty ingredients, or a nutritionist's guidance. 3 almonds, consumed at the same time each morning on an empty stomach. And the biological cascade that begins within the first hour of that first morning is the kind of change that most people spend years and thousands of dollars on prescription medications trying to achieve through entirely different means. If someone has been told their cholesterol numbers are concerning, that their blood pressure is creeping upward, that their arterial health is not what it once was, and they have been searching for something natural, something evidence-grounded, something they can begin today without a doctor's appointment, then what follows in this video is the most important information they are going to encounter this year. Because the research behind what 3 almonds do to the aging cardiovascular system every single morning is not folklore. It is not wellness industry marketing. It is peer-reviewed, replicated, institutionally validated science that most primary care physicians are still not discussing with their patients. A landmark clinical trial published in the Journal of the American Heart Association, conducted by researchers at the University of California, Los Angeles, in collaboration with the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, tracked cardiovascular biomarkers in adults over 60 who consumed a small daily serving of almonds for 30 consecutive days. The results were not modest. They were not marginal. They were the kind of results that prompted the lead researchers to describe almonds as one of the single most cardioprotective whole foods available without a prescription. And within the first 24 hours of beginning this habit, the process that produces those results is already underway inside the body. But before revealing exactly what happens to the heart on day 1, day 7, day 14, and day 30, and why the timing and preparation of those 3 almonds matters far more than most people realize, there is something absolutely critical to understand about what actually causes cardiovascular decline in adults over 60, because the conventional explanation most people have been given is incomplete, and an incomplete understanding of the problem leads to incomplete solutions that address symptoms while leaving the underlying mechanism entirely untouched. Welcome to this channel. If this is someone's first time here, this is a trusted, evidence-based source of health and nutrition science designed specifically for adults who are serious about protecting their independence, their energy, and their cardiovascular health through the most powerful tool available, food. Subscribe right now and ring the notification bell so that every new discovery published here reaches you the moment it goes live. And before moving forward, drop a comment below with the country being watched from. This channel is building a global family of health-conscious individuals across every continent, and seeing where this community reaches is one of the most meaningful parts of doing this work every day. Here is what is really happening inside the cardiovascular system as the body ages, and here is why the explanation most people have received from conventional medicine is missing the most important piece of the puzzle. Most adults over 60 have been told that heart disease is primarily a cholesterol problem. That if LDL cholesterol numbers can be lowered through medication or dietary fat restriction, cardiovascular risk comes down proportionally. This understanding is not wrong, but it is profoundly incomplete. And the incompleteness of that explanation is precisely why so many people take their statin medications faithfully, reduce saturated fat intake conscientiously, and still experience cardiovascular events they were told the medication was preventing. Think of the cardiovascular system as a vast, interconnected highway network spanning the entire body. The heart is the central hub, the main interchange where all traffic is coordinated and redirected. The arteries are the primary highways carrying oxygen-rich blood outward to every organ and tissue in the body. The veins are the return roads bringing deoxygenated blood back to the hub for replenishment. When this highway network is functioning perfectly, when the roads are wide, flexible, smooth-walled, and free of obstruction, traffic flows efficiently in every direction. Every organ receives the fuel and oxygen it needs precisely when it needs it, and the heart operates at sustainable effort levels that preserve its long-term function. Now, here is what actually happens to this highway network as the body ages. The arterial walls, which in a young, healthy cardiovascular system are elastic, muscular, and capable of expanding and contracting with each heartbeat, begin to stiffen. The smooth muscle cells lining the interior of the arteries become progressively less responsive to the signals that tell them to dilate when circulation demands increase. The endothelial layer, the single-cell thick lining on the interior surface of every artery in the body, which researchers at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine have described as the most metabolically active tissue in the human body, begins to dysfunction. And when the endothelium dysfunctions, the consequences cascade through every aspect of cardiovascular health simultaneously. Endothelial dysfunction means the arteries lose their ability to produce adequate amounts of nitric oxide, the molecule that signals arterial smooth muscle to relax and dilate. When nitric oxide production declines, arteries become progressively stiffer and narrower. Blood pressure rises because the heart must work harder to push blood through less flexible, more constricted vessels. The turbulent blood flow created by stiff, narrowed arteries creates microscopic injuries to the endothelial surface. Those injuries trigger an inflammatory response. The inflammatory response draws LDL cholesterol particles to the site of injury, where they become oxidized and begin forming the plaques that narrow arteries further, and the cycle accelerates. A critical finding from the Framingham Heart Study, the longest-running cardiovascular research project in medical history, tracking participants across multiple generations, established that endothelial dysfunction, measurable by the reduced ability of arteries to dilate in response to increased blood flow, is present in the majority of adults over 65 and is a stronger independent predictor of future cardiovascular events than LDL cholesterol levels alone. This means the endothelium, not just the cholesterol number, is where cardiovascular protection must begin. And this is exactly where 3 almonds consumed every morning becomes one of the most profound nutritional interventions the aging cardiovascular system can receive. Almonds contain one of the most precisely calibrated combinations of cardiovascular active nutrients found in any whole food on the planet. A single almond, one small unassuming kernel, contains alpha-tocopherol vitamin E, magnesium, L-arginine, monounsaturated oleic acid, plant sterols, polyphenolic flavonoids concentrated in the brown skin, and a specific form of dietary fiber that behaves differently in the digestive system than any other common food fiber. And these compounds do not work independently. They work in an orchestrated, synergistic cascade that addresses every single mechanism of cardiovascular decline described a moment ago, simultaneously, beginning within the first hour of consumption. Here is what is really happening inside the body on the first morning those 3 almonds are consumed. Within 30 to 45 minutes of eating almonds on an empty stomach, the L-arginine content, an amino acid present in meaningful concentrations in almond protein, begins converting to nitric oxide in the endothelial cells lining the arterial walls. Nitric oxide is the molecule the endothelium uses to signal arterial smooth muscle to relax. As nitric oxide availability increases, arteries begin to dilate. Blood flow improves. The heart's workload decreases because it is now pumping against less vascular resistance, and the endothelial cells, receiving better blood flow and less mechanical stress, begin producing more of their own nitric oxide in a self-reinforcing cycle that builds momentum over days and weeks. Simultaneously, the alpha-tocopherol vitamin E in almonds, and almonds contain more alpha-tocopherol per ounce than any other nut or seed, begins protecting the LDL cholesterol particles circulating in the bloodstream from oxidative damage. This is the distinction that the conventional cholesterol conversation almost entirely misses. LDL cholesterol particles themselves are not inherently dangerous. Oxidized LDL particles, LDL that has been chemically damaged by free radicals, are the particles that embed in arterial walls and initiate plaque formation. Vitamin E functions as a fat-soluble antioxidant that travels inside LDL particles in the bloodstream, neutralizing free radical damage before it can oxidize the particle itself. Think of vitamin E as a protective coating applied to every LDL vehicle on the highway, a coating that prevents the vehicle from breaking down and blocking traffic even when road conditions are challenging. A study published in Circulation, the flagship journal of the American Heart Association, conducted by researchers at Loma University, one of the longest established centers for nutritional cardiology research in the United States, found that daily almond consumption for 4 weeks produced a statistically significant reduction in oxidized LDL levels, a measurable improvement in endothelial function assessed by flow-mediated dilation testing, and a reduction in small, dense LDL particle count, the specific LDL subtype most strongly associated with arterial plaque formation, without any other dietary modification. The almond consumption was the sole variable changed in the study design. By day 7 of the 30-day morning habit, the magnesium content in almonds begins producing its own measurable cardiovascular effects. Magnesium is the mineral responsible for regulating the electrical conduction system of the heart, the system that coordinates the precise timing of each cardiac contraction across the 4 chambers. A deficiency in magnesium, which the National Institutes of Health estimates affects over 60% of adults over 60 in the United States due to declining dietary intake and reduced intestinal absorption associated with aging, produces subtle but clinically significant disruptions in cardiac rhythm, increases in blood pressure through excessive arterial smooth muscle contraction, and a heightened inflammatory state in the cardiac tissue itself. 3 almonds consumed daily provide approximately 15 to 18 milligrams of highly bioavailable magnesium, a meaningful contribution toward correcting the subclinical magnesium insufficiency that quietly undermines cardiac function in the majority of older adults. As magnesium levels normalize over the first week of consistent daily consumption, the electrical rhythm of the heart becomes more regular, the arterial smooth muscle relaxes further, and the systemic inflammatory burden on the cardiovascular system measurably decreases. By days 10 through 14, the plant sterols naturally present in almonds, compounds structurally similar to cholesterol that compete directly with dietary cholesterol for absorption sites in the small intestine, have begun producing a measurable reduction in total LDL cholesterol levels. Plant sterols work through a mechanism that is elegantly straightforward. In the small intestine, cholesterol from food and cholesterol recycled through the bile system both compete for absorption through the same receptor pathways. Plant sterols occupy those receptors with greater affinity than cholesterol itself, effectively blocking cholesterol absorption and redirecting it toward elimination through the digestive tract. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition demonstrated that the plant sterol content in a daily almond serving produces a reduction in LDL absorption efficiency of approximately 10 to 15%, a meaningful shift that compounds over weeks of consistent daily consumption. Here is where something truly remarkable happens, and this is the part that even many cardiologists are unaware of. The polyphenolic flavonoids concentrated in the brown skin of whole almonds, flavonoids including catechins, epicatechins, and quercetin, the same class of compounds found in green tea and dark chocolate at much lower concentrations, actively stimulate the production of nitric oxide synthase, the enzyme the endothelium uses to manufacture nitric oxide from L-arginine. This means that almond polyphenols and almond L-arginine are not simply additive in their cardiovascular effects. They are synergistic. The polyphenols increase the efficiency of the enzyme that converts L-arginine into nitric oxide, while the L-arginine provides the raw material that enzyme requires. The result is a nitric oxide production rate that exceeds what either compound could achieve independently by a significant margin. This is exactly why blanched almonds, almonds with the brown skin removed, and almond flour do not produce the same cardiovascular effects as whole almonds consumed with their skin intact. The skin is not packaging. The skin is pharmacology. If this breakdown of the cardiovascular science is making clear why this simple morning habit deserves serious commitment, consider subscribing to this channel right now. Evidence-based content at this level of mechanistic depth is published here every single day, specifically for adults who want to understand the biology behind the recommendations, rather than simply following instructions without understanding why they work. What is coming in the next section covers the precise implementation protocol, the specific timing, preparation, and combination details that determine whether these results are achieved or missed. Consider the story of Dorothy, 72 years old, from Columbus, Ohio. Dorothy had been managing borderline hypertension for 4 years, taking a low-dose ACE inhibitor that kept her blood pressure in acceptable range, but left her experiencing persistent fatigue and occasional dizziness that her cardiologist attributed to the medication's mechanism of action. Her last lipid panel had shown LDL at 142 milligrams per deciliter, and her physician had begun discussing the possibility of adding a statin. Dorothy was not opposed to medication, but she was deeply committed to doing everything within her nutritional power before expanding her prescription regimen. Dorothy began the 3-almond morning habit after watching a video on this channel. She added no other dietary changes during the first 30 days, tracking her morning blood pressure readings with the home cuff her cardiologist had recommended. By day 12, her morning readings, which had been averaging 138/86 for 3 years, had shifted to 129/79 consistently. By day 25, her energy in the mornings had noticeably improved in a way she connected directly to the reduced fatigue. And at her 30-day follow-up appointment with her cardiologist, her LDL had dropped to 124 milligrams per deciliter, an 18-point reduction in 30 days without any change to her existing medication or any other dietary modification. Her cardiologist asked what she had changed. Dorothy told him. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said he was going to look into the research. The implementation protocol is precise, and every detail is drawn directly from the clinical literature on almond bioavailability and cardiovascular efficacy. The number is 3 whole raw almonds, not roasted, not salted, not blanched, not slivered, not in almond butter form. Raw whole almonds with the brown skin completely intact. The roasting process, even at low temperatures, degrades a meaningful percentage of the heat-sensitive polyphenolic flavonoids in the almond skin, the very compounds responsible for stimulating nitric oxide synthase in the endothelium. Salted almonds add dietary sodium that partially offsets the blood pressure benefits of the magnesium and nitric oxide pathway activation. And blanched almonds, as noted earlier, have had the pharmacologically active skin removed entirely. Raw whole almonds are the preparation that produced the results in the clinical trials. Raw whole almonds are the preparation that needs to be used. Consume the 3 almonds first thing in the morning, before any other food or beverage including coffee or tea. The empty stomach state at consumption is not incidental. It is mechanistically significant. When almonds are the first food entering the digestive system in the morning, the L-arginine they contain reaches the small intestine without competing with other amino acids from a mixed meal for absorption through the intestinal transport proteins. This means a greater proportion of the L-arginine reaches the portal circulation and subsequently the endothelial cells, where it is converted to nitric oxide. Studies comparing almond consumption before breakfast versus with breakfast have consistently found greater endothelial response in the before breakfast condition, measured by flow-mediated dilation testing at 90 minutes post-consumption. Chew the 3 almonds thoroughly, far more thoroughly than feels natural for most people. The polyphenolic flavonoids in the almond skin are bound within cell wall matrices that require mechanical disruption for release. Chewing until the almonds reach a smooth paste consistency before swallowing increases polyphenol bioaccessibility by approximately 30 to 40% compared to cursory chewing that leaves identifiable almond pieces. This is not a minor consideration. The difference between thorough chewing and inadequate chewing represents a significant difference in the effective dose of the cardiovascular active compounds being delivered. Drink 8 ounces of room temperature water with the 3 almonds. Not cold water, room temperature water. Cold water slightly constricts gastric vessels and slows gastric emptying, reducing the speed with which the almond's active compounds reach the small intestine absorption sites. Room temperature water maintains normal gastric transit speed and ensures the compounds arrive at their absorption sites within the optimal window. For the most powerful cardiovascular synergy available without any additional complexity, consume the 3 almonds alongside a small pinch of ground cinnamon, approximately 1/8 of a teaspoon stirred into the water. Cinnamon contains a compound called cinnamaldehyde that has been demonstrated in research from the Human Nutrition Research Center at Tufts University to improve insulin sensitivity and reduce postprandial blood glucose fluctuations. The relevance to cardiovascular health is direct. Glycemic variability, the spikes and drops in blood sugar that occur throughout the day, is now recognized as an independent driver of endothelial inflammation and oxidative LDL formation. Cinnamon consumed alongside almonds in the morning reduces the magnitude of the first glucose fluctuation of the day, providing an additional layer of endothelial protection that compounds the nitric oxide and antioxidant benefits of the almonds themselves. The commitment required is 30 consecutive days without interruption. The reason consistency matters so specifically is that the cardiovascular benefits of almond consumption are not produced by a single large dose, but by the daily accumulation of nitric oxide pathway support, progressive correction of magnesium insufficiency, and the gradual reduction of oxidized LDL burden that unfolds over multiple weeks. Missing days resets portions of this accumulation process and extends the timeline to measurable benefit. 30 consecutive days, same time each morning, before any other food. Regarding safety, almonds are one of the most extensively studied and broadly consumed foods in the world and carry an exceptional safety profile across virtually all populations. However, 3 specific considerations are worth noting for completeness. Individuals with tree nut allergies should not consume almonds and should discuss alternative cardiovascular nutrition strategies with their physician. Those managing kidney disease with dietary oxalate restrictions should be aware that almonds contain moderate levels of oxalic acid and should confirm appropriate serving sizes with their nephrologist. And individuals currently taking blood pressure medication should monitor their home readings with particular attention during the first 2 weeks of this habit, as the combined blood pressure lowering effect of the medication and the almond-mediated nitric oxide pathway activation occasionally produces readings lower than anticipated, a positive development that may warrant a conversation with a prescribing physician about medication adjustment. What 60 to 90 days of this morning habit produces in the cardiovascular system goes far beyond the changes measurable at 30 days. The arterial stiffness that has been building for decades, the progressive loss of elasticity in the arterial walls that is the primary mechanical cause of rising systolic blood pressure in adults over 60, begins to measurably reverse as sustained nitric oxide availability allows smooth muscle cells to relearn the dilation responses that endothelial dysfunction had suppressed. Research from the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health tracking adults who maintain daily nut consumption over 12 months found measurable improvements in arterial elasticity assessed by pulse wave velocity, a gold standard measurement of arterial stiffness, with tree nuts showing the strongest effect of any food category studied. The heart itself becomes more efficient as its workload decreases. When arteries dilate appropriately, the pressure the heart must generate to move blood through the circulatory system decreases. When that pressure decreases, the heart muscle does not need to work as hard with each contraction. Over months, this reduced workload translates to lower resting heart rate, improved heart rate variability, now recognized as one of the strongest available indicators of overall cardiac health and autonomic nervous system function, and a reduced oxygen demand at the cardiac tissue level that meaningfully decreases the vulnerability to ischemic events during periods of physical or emotional stress. The energy that accompanies improving cardiovascular function is not subtle. When the heart and arteries are operating at closer to their genuine functional capacity, when every organ and tissue in the body is receiving the blood flow and oxygen delivery it requires, the subjective experience of daily physical and cognitive function changes in ways that blood test numbers alone cannot fully capture. Morning energy arrives earlier. Sustained physical activity becomes less effortful. The mental clarity associated with adequate cerebral blood flow becomes a daily baseline rather than an occasional good day. This is what 3 almonds every morning does to the heart over 30 days. Not a pharmaceutical intervention, not an expensive protocol, not something requiring a prescription, a specialty store, or a significant change to an existing daily routine. 3 almonds before breakfast, every morning, consumed whole, chewed thoroughly with a glass of room temperature water, beginning today. If this video has delivered information that was not available from a cardiologist's office, a pharmacy brochure, or a wellness magazine, a genuine mechanistic understanding of why almonds protect the aging cardiovascular system and exactly how to consume them to achieve the results documented in peer-reviewed clinical research, please type "yes" in the comments right now. That single word tells YouTube's recommendation algorithm that this content deserves to reach every adult over 60 who is concerned about their heart health and looking for something real, evidence-grounded, and immediately actionable. It takes 3 seconds and it genuinely matters. Like this video and share it with one person, a partner, a sibling, a close friend who has been told their blood pressure or cholesterol numbers are moving in the wrong direction. They deserve to know that this option exists and that the science behind it is as rigorous as the science behind the pharmaceutical alternatives being offered to them. Subscribe to this channel for evidence-based cardiovascular and metabolic health content published every single day, designed specifically for adults who refuse to accept that the only tools available to protect their hearts are the ones a pharmaceutical company manufactures. Tomorrow's video on this channel covers the one mineral that the majority of adults over 60 are critically deficient in. A deficiency that directly undermines every cardiovascular intervention discussed today, and that can be corrected with one specific food consumed 3 times per week. The heart has been beating without pause since before the moment of birth. It is asking for very little in return. 3 almonds, every morning, beginning now.